of Upper Dublin's School Board of Directors, and we are, whoops, I think I need to refresh my, anyway, welcome. We have our committee here, and I would like to see, we don't have a very long agenda. We have one presentation. Ms. Bray, would you like to start with our development of the 2019-2020 general fund budget?
Excuse me. It's really not so much of a presentation as it is just talking about where we are right now as we look to the 2019-20 budget. The Act 1 index, you will note that there is the notice from the Department of Education has been shared with everyone, and it indicates that the base index, which is certainly what will be applicable to the school district of Upper Dublin, is 2.3% for that year. For the year that we're living in, 2018-19, it was 2.4%. So with that announcement last Friday, we're off and running for the next year's budget. We're going to talk a little bit about the budget timeline, and in fact, when things already changed on the draft. But before we get to that, the last 2 years we've had what is referred to more formally as the Act 1 opt-out resolution, where the district, the board votes to indicate that we will not go above the index. There used to be exceptions, and we would still have a minor one for PSERS, but that we would not go above the index. The maximum tax increase would be 2.3%. And we assume that we will be bringing that before the board, which might, the last 2 years it's been in January, but perhaps we might want to do that as early as December, just as a formality and take care of that step. If we want to look at the draft of the budget timeline, you'll note, probably you should note, at the bottom of the second page, dates may change when PDE releases the budget timeline, which is typically in October. But what we've done is taken the last few years, and then there's never, unless it's a presidential election year, it's pretty consistent from year to year. And you'll note that the dates, the benchmark dates that we have for September, publishes that index has already been indicated. Tonight's on here that that we're going to talk briefly about the timeline, and by 9/30th, and I actually did read something today, PD will notify each district of their modified Act 1 index, but due to our 0.15 or very close to 0.15 aid ratio, we know that we will be 2.3. Next month, we plan to update assumptions and start talking about the long-term financial plan, and so that will be on the agenda for October. And we've already announced what our October operations as well as finance committee will be. The auditors are in next week, and that's always important information for us to finalize for the year ended June 30th of 2018, and that's an important part for us to discuss and begin looking forward to the next year as a the basis. And I'm not going to read down and go through all of these. You will have a chance to look at them. We'll continue to bring it back. One thing I did mention and want to take this opportunity, earlier today there was discussion about the November Finance and Operation Committee meetings. Because of Thanksgiving being on the third Thursday of the month, we would normally have our meetings on November the 14th, but we've decided that we will push those to November, excuse me, I said 14th, I believe it's November the 15th, and we will push them to November the 29th. So that will make it easier. We'll work better with our timeline and pulling things together for the next December budget. Although from the looks of things, Mr. Ropsky may not be happy with that change.
No, I'm not.
We can talk about it later. I could just see that on your face. So if there's questions, I'm not sure anyone's had a chance to look at it. I certainly can go through each one. I don't believe that that's necessary, though.
And just really quickly, when do we usually get our first look at our health insurance numbers? I forget exactly when.
That typically isn't, we may have one in November or December.
Okay,
And then, of course, we also back ours up with having Gallagher come
Right,
and
exactly.
speak to us as well.
so we'll
which
have
we
them do that as well.
Yes, yeah, they will come usually in March to speak to us.
Okay.
And as you can see, we were already planning on, Mrs. Clegg will be very happy to know that we're moving the meeting from November the 15th to the 29th to begin our cabinet level discussions of budget as well.
Right, okay. All right, does anyone on the committee have any questions about the timeline?
So are we changing anything about how we're doing budget inputs from the various departments? I remember some discussion about that, maybe, like we've had curriculum and technology discussions fairly early in the year, like November and December. Are we pushing those off till later?
With the Act 1 resolution, we could certainly push them back probably a month or so. But for us to pull together a budget so they can be out in the public and have everything done, and by us, I really mean Mrs. Baldessano probably more than me, but, in order to get everything together and have it be logical, we really do need to start building the budget in November.
Are we going to have those discussions, the presentations we've had at the Finance Committee meetings? Or are we
Yes.
we're going to do them the same way we've done them?
That would
in
be
the
my,
past?
unless there's
I
some
was gonna
requests
say.
that we do them differently. Last year, we added operations being separate, Mr. Lester. I don't know that I should ask Mr. Robbins to do it in his first year. I did give Mr. Lester a full year pass before, but as we try to have more and more budget builders or budget makers give their information.
Sort of to piggyback on that, I know when Dr. Yanni, you were coming into the district, you had talked about potentially some changes to the process for looking at budget numbers from at our building level, sort of starting afresh at this point since we have a new superintendent. Is that going to impact the process going forward?
I'm sure that it will.
So, Mrs. Bray and Mrs. Baldessano and I need to probably have a sit down. I think one of the things that we talk about a long-range capital plan. I think we really need to be working with our cabinet level administrators and principals on a multi-year plan, because there really is no good and convenient time to build a school district budget, and we build budgets blind because we really don't know state and federal funding, other than we make some assumptions that it will be flat. So one of the things we'll be looking at are some trends over the last couple of years where spending is, and then really sort of projecting out curriculum, technology, special education, so that we can almost start thinking about a multi-year budget cycle.
And to that end, in special ed, or Mrs. Clegg, she has a 3-year budget, and so some of the subgroups have already started adopting that. I'm sorry?
Doesn't Phil also?
Yes.
In fact, even some of curriculum is
Yes.
multi-year.
Yes, Phil's influence on that has caused us to start looking at, but as we've had we've talked more about a curriculum review budget cycle, that lends itself to multi-year budgeting, much easier than just taking it year by year. Monday's night approval of the sports staff contract makes, those assumptions or those costs that will come out of that contract will be built into the 5-year plan. So
I think it's also important to note that I think we have to analyze some of our practices. So if I look at the curriculum budget, we have teachers that spend a lot of time with us over the summer writing curriculum, but we also spend a lot of time writing curriculum during the school year, and that costs us substitute money, but that the unintended cost is we're pulling teachers away from their kids. And so I really want to work with Dr. Miner and Ms. Morrison to determine how we can best work that out. And as cost and technology are coming down, working with Mr. Vinogradov, projecting out technology expenses is going to be much easier than it has been over the last couple of years.
Yes, so starting with the Chromebooks, getting that on board and getting that as integrated into the budget
That's
was
good.
challenging.
Go ahead.
Doing more of the curriculum work in block time over the summer probably is much more efficient in terms of what gets done during those periods than little bits of time during the school year anyway.
Okay. Any questions from other board members here? Dan?
Yeah, I'm a little flipped out that this meeting, the operations meeting for November is now on a date that I'm going to be out of the country. I mean, I was commissioner for 8 years and did not miss one meeting, 100%, 8 years. I already missed one meeting in the summertime because you guys moved the meeting to a week again that I was away. Now you're moving another meeting that I'm going to be away, and I looked at the calendar, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to miss another meeting, and you're switching the date already. I think the school directors need to be aware of these plans prior to setting up a meeting, because I'm going to be out of here and I want to go to that meeting. I'm really upset about this. I already missed one meeting, I don't want to miss any more meetings. I think we need to discuss this prior to approving the meeting change. Now, I'm looking here, we could have it on the 19th, okay, which is the Monday before Thanksgiving, or again, keep it on the 15th. So I think we need to discuss this.
So the rationale, do we have, for moving this as, did you have something to say? Go ahead.
It would just give us some more time to pull together some of the work for Sandy Run, as far as the Act 34 hearing. And we haven't advertised, we haven't changed anything yet, so we can continue conversation.
I thought there were some bids and approvals that need to be done, and they would not be coming back in time to make the November 15th meeting. And they were critical that they get approved by the board so we can continue to move forward.
Again, the Act 34 hearing and the information related to that, we cannot do it on the 15th, but that doesn't mean we might not choose another date. So that we can put it through. It needs to be approved in December.
Sometimes there are just, you have to move these meetings. Sometimes it just has happened. Circumstances come up that we weren't aware of or weren't expecting, and then we have to reschedule. But as you said, we can still talk about it.
If I could interject, I wasn't going to bring this up tonight, but it seems like the appropriate time. I've been speaking with Dr. Levinowitz and Ms. Rothman and also Ms. Bray that I think we need, as we schedule our board meetings moving forward and committee meetings moving forward after reorganization, I think we have to have a more predictable schedule of when meetings are going to be. So for instance, having an operations committee meeting tonight and a finance meeting tonight, right after a legislative meeting, all of these items sit in a queue for almost a month. And so one of the things, and I can put more information in my weekly update, I think it would behoove us to pick a night of the week where we have all of our meetings, so there's a predictable schedule, and it should alleviate some of the concerns of moving meetings, particularly if we put finance and operations later in the month.
That would be a good idea. Yeah. Any questions?
I just want to try to remember what we discussed this morning. I thought thought the bids to go out for the modulars, and when they come back, we need to get those approved in December, but if we had the meeting on the 15th, we couldn't move forward. There was something to
We
that
w-
effect.
It does have to do with the modulars.
Right.
And it may also now have to do with the additional ADA work that we want to do. But we could move the meeting to a different date and still have it be so that we
Right.
could vote on it on
Just so it's not
December
the
the 10th.
15th. Right.
Yeah, we can always poll the board and see if there's another night that works
I will have to,
in the last week in November.
we have not determined exactly, well, the last week in November is probably when you're going to be away, so.
Well, we'll have to talk.
Right. I think we're
Sure.
compelled, though, for this purpose to do this.
We
but-
don't know exactly what the date of advertising is that we want to do. It has to be done over 3 weeks. I don't know the date of the bid opening at this point in time. So we'll get additional information and relay it to the board. However, I guess we never move a legislative meeting date, and that's, in the committee meetings, we've been a little bit more flexible about the nights that they are held in the past. So certainly no, I did not mean to offend anyone on the board by that announcement.
Well, I am also looking here, we do have an education meeting on December 3rd. Perhaps we could just have the
All
bid
three.
approval or documents that you're saying that needs to be, give a little bit more time. Perhaps we could just have that on the agenda during the education committee meeting. I'm not sure if that will work.
We'll work it
I'm
out.
just trying to,
We'll work it out. We'll talk to you.
All right, so we'll have further discussion then about this. This is not necessarily carved in stone, as we know.
I was just trying to get it out there.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for that. If there are no other questions or comments on the timeline, we'll now I don't see anybody else.
May I?
Yes, yes.
Announce a few things?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm sorry. Next week, we're actually, the draft of the official statement for the first borrowing for Sandy Run Middle School is in draft form. So there are a number of activities that are going on related to the first borrowing. And to that end, the parameters resolution will probably be before the board, will be before the board
In
on October 8th
Right.
for the first bond sale, in addition to the resolution for the Act 34 hearing.
Oh, right.
So it will, Mrs. Doyle will have several things perhaps to discuss and go over with that evening.
Okay, good to know. Any other comments or questions? Stan?
I got one comment. This is to lighten up the conversation, okay? You know, when the pipes at Maple Glen that had the extra insulation, that we saved some money on when we installed the air conditioning, that was Art's idea when they built that school. He put that in there.
I want to see those minutes. Okay. And now we'll open up for community input. And if you have any questions, no? Okay. Well, seeing no community members coming up to the microphone, I guess I will just announce that the next Finance Committee meeting will be held on October 25th at 7 p.m. or immediately following the Operations Committee. Any other comments or questions? No? All right, we're done. Thank you very much.